Well, our next guest, old friend of the community. You and I go back about 40 years, I think.
About that long, I'm afraid.
Rich Dalbello. And Rich, for those of you who are living in a cave and are not aware, has done a real great turn because he's been in the commercial space world, Virgin Galactic most recently. And by the way, kudos, because Nello from the Italian embassy reminded me that Rich, when he was wearing the Virgin hat, was really very critical to negotiating the Italian passengers, researchers that flew.
Nello and I, our deal.
Yeah, and that was a huge success. And Nello's told me that has resonated with the Italian people in terms of relevance of space. So congrats to you. So Rich could have done a lot of things in terms of when he decided to make the next move in his career. And he went back. He went back to the government when he was invited, went back to the Office of Space Commerce. We've been directors some years prior, and we're really indebted to him. I've said that to him privately. I'd like to say it publicly, to come back and get that office. And now that you have some real dollars to work with, unlike the paltry numbers that we all had years ago.
And staff.
God forbid staff. And he's got an important mission, among which is leading the whole space traffic management area. So we're going to get into that. We only have 15 minutes for what could easily be several hours. And I want to thank you because you spend most of your life 42,000 feet in the air traveling around the world. So thank By the way, as he's being remiked, we're taking you back to a pre-Elon era. And I like to mention to people that when Elon was still in elementary school, Jeff Bezos was just starting high school, and Princeton was still on the horizon. And Branson was not a sir, but he was flinging vinyl in record stores. And for those of you who don't know, we had records before we had digital whatever today. This is the era that Rich is talking about. Go ahead.
We do sound very old. I apologize to everyone here. We should probably jump in. I think we're boring them all.
Oh, I hope not. So, big picture. So, you know, this symposium is dedicated to the long-range vision of establishing space communities beyond Earth. And be it Moon, be it the O'Neillian space communities we're aware of, or other planetary surfaces. And again, you've spent a major portion of your career associated with Pathfinder Space Ventures. I'd like to start with your personal aspirational goal for humanity. Well, where will we be in roughly, let me give you a 25-year time horizon. So wax aspirational for a couple of minutes.
Well, I think, look, as we look to the future, obviously NASA and their counterparts around the world have an exploration agenda that's bold. And we just heard from the general about the evolving national security part of space. But I think we can talk about commercial separately. We do want to see self-sustaining markets being built that, whether it be, again, there's a lot of great ideas being thrown out now, commercial habitats in low Earth orbit, brand new services that aren't available yet, such as debris remediation, the repair and replacement of satellites, refueling. There's a bunch of stuff in the LEO economy, and then beyond that, the moon and the asteroids, where we're hoping vibrant economies will catch hold. It's one thing for governments to go boldly, and we should. But it's quite another thing for the markets, which have to be self-sustaining and economically rational. And what I hope is that those marketplaces actually catch hold and drive a whole new round of energy into both low Earth orbit and basic communications, new transportation capabilities, both in space and around the world, and all the way to the surface of the moon and onto the asteroids. And I think, again, those things in a self-sustaining economic way, where you have people with commercial capital pursuing a set of objectives in a positive way that's returning good revenues to the investors. And that's a hard vision, but I think that it's doable.
We talk a lot about space ecosystems. But critical to the foundation of such an ecosystem is managing the assets, or in this case, space traffic management,
Right.
situation awareness, and you are right in the middle of that. So I wonder if you could spend a few moments talking about the significance of STM, the fact that you do spend and have spent a lot of time with the international community, ensuring that we're doing this presumably right in alignment with other countries' interest in space. Just give us sort of a status report where you stand with space
Sure.
traffic management.
I think, as most everybody in the audience knows, Space Policy Directive 3 said that the Commerce Department would take over the responsibility for space traffic management for commercial and civil users. The DoD wanted to focus away from SSA and space traffic management to space domain awareness. So as they're doing that shift, we entered into an agreement with DoD and with NASA at the beginning of the program. With DoD, we're in the process now of going through the very complicated process of figuring out which of the DoD data will flow into our system. We'll, of course, be augmenting with commercial and international data. But then with NASA is working with us as our partner on the R&D side. So we have two great partnerships. We've been working on this a while. I think the SPD3 passed in 2018, but Congress didn't fund us till January of 2023. So when we got the first significant round of funding, we were able to start hiring and moving out. We're looking forward to a phase 1 that will, by the end of 2024, will essentially replicate what DoD is doing now, and then moving forward to advance that materially while using the assets of the commercial sector and the international community. I think the biggest challenges are not the mechanical challenges of creating the program, which are many, but I think globally, the SSA community, we've seen a rapid increase in the number of satellites in low Earth orbit in particular. GEO remains a relatively benign environment. It's kind of like living in the suburbs out there, you know your neighbors, everyone's nice and friendly. LEO is a little bit more rough and tumble. And so we, of course, have Starlink with one of the largest fleets, with the largest fleet ever built. We have Kuiper, Amazon Kuiper, close behind. We have the Chinese announcing a system that I'm sure that they're quite serious about. And so we are looking at tens of thousands of active satellites. And right now, just simply the technology doesn't really exist to do that today in a safe and sustainable fashion. And so we need, but there are all technologies within our grasp. And so I think moving quickly to catch up with, we are in the process of catching up with the problem. The second thing is that SSA today is really just a notice. There's no regulation. It isn't like air traffic control. When the tower tells you to descend to flight level 6,000, they aren't making a suggestion. It's not like you're the pilot and you go, yeah, I don't really feel it today. I like where I am. So we are living in a transitional world, and part of the reason that these are just suggestions rather than mandates is that we're not that good yet. That's the simple truth, is that a lot of warnings and notices go out that are not correct. Operators sometimes get inundated with incorrect messages. And so that was fine in a former age, but now that we're in this age of hyperdensity in low Earth orbit, everything has to start changing. And then internationally, one of the mistakes, I don't know if I should say that, one of the interesting opinions that the United States had after it created the GPS system was that the world would just rely on GPS. And I think the United States was a bit disappointed when it found out that everyone wanted to have their own navigational satellites. Because we said, well, why would you do that? Ours is perfectly good. And what we are doing in starting out in this program is we're just saying, look, we understand all sovereign nations are going to have a desire to be able to manage their own fleets and to understand where everything is. So why don't we just start with the presumption that the world is going to look more like the international banking system than it looks like air traffic control. So think of this, millions of transactions a second, highly desegregated, rapidly information swirling around the world in a low trust environment. That's really what we're going to be building. And it's not going to be just the US system. We're already talking to our colleagues in Europe. I've got some folks in my office down in Australia this week talking to the Space 5, which is the civil corollary to the Five Eyes group, about SSA. And this is an international dialogue from the get-go. We can't solve this problem. And we can't solve this problem without China. So it's like saying, I'm going to have an air traffic control network, but I don't want China on it, right? Mm-hmm. Because, well, what happens when an airplane lands at JFK? Yeah. So there are some things that are going to be dictated by technology and the requirements of common sense. And it's a global system. That's the whole globe.
Rich, let me ask you this. You know, those of us in the private sector have the privilege of complaining and whining. As we should. Now that you've changed seats, as you know, there's concern about how protracted it has seemed to be to implement the STM at Commerce. I think you gave a few minutes ago a down payment on an answer. Right. But the clocks, by many people's measures, started in June of 2018, and here we are. So I just want to give you the opportunity to respond to all that time that's passed. And are you optimistic that we're going to end up with a executed plan sooner than later?
I am optimistic, and I take all the complaints and criticism absolutely in the good spirit that I think it's meant. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have been in the commercial sector and been yelling at the government, which seems inert most of the time, right? And you just want to do something. You know, it just, once you get in, first of all, whether it's NASA, DOD, or Commerce, I mean, there are processes within processes within processes for acquisition. I mean, you can't stand up a data system without, approval of these 6 organizations, and you can't do an acquisition without approval of these 6 organizations. So in the commercial sector, you decide to do something, and you make a decision, and you spend the money and you do it, and if you're wrong, you get fired. It's a pretty simple system. In the government, things don't work that way. So we are inherently going to be slower than the commercial sector. We didn't get the money till 2023. So even though SPD3 was signed in 18, we couldn't really get started till 2023, till the beginning of this year. But it is, when you think about what is an SSA system, there's an infrastructure which is going to be some kind of cloud-based thing. That cloud-based environment has to be designed by a systems integrator to perform functions, essentially to accept the apps. And then you have a bunch of applications that write on top of that. You need a bunch of data, and you need some way to do output. And so all of those pieces, we've said we should have either under contract or well underway in the next few months. And then the question becomes, what applications do we bring on board from the commercial sector, from our international partners? And that's, we've outlined a series of pathfinders, and those pathfinders are going to be where we need to demonstrate 3 things. One is this is a new marketplace. So just the question is, what is good enough? We were told to build a basic service. Well, where's the line between basic and advanced? And you know, we're working on that with our commercial sector. We're also working with our partners at the EU SST. You know, what is a basic service? And then the second question, how much is good enough? I mean, I think many of people have probably heard me say this before. Some operators are excellent. You've got some very mature operators who've been doing flight dynamics for 30, 40 years. Some operators are young and they don't know where their satellites are. You know, so we're dealing with an uneven level of expertise. So how much is enough? What level, before we listen to an operator about where they think they are, how good do they have to be? And then what do things cost? One of the big issues we have is, you know, there hasn't been a functioning marketplace. And it sounds trivial, but people haven't exaggerated. I mean, people have spent their life, their lifeblood, you know, to do a thing. And they think it's very, very, very valuable. And they come to us and they want a lot of money to do their thing for us. But we're not doing just one thing. We have to put the whole system together. So even coming up with how much should something cost, an observation, a radar observation, observation from a satellite in orbit. I mean, all of these things have to be validated and the market has to be validated. So that's what the Pathfinders will do. The Pathfinders will turn into acquisitions. The acquisitions will be delivered apps that'll ride on the system. The goal of creating the infrastructure ourselves, as opposed to just trying to buy something, three. Number one, we didn't think something exists that could do the job that we think we have to do. Number two, this is a safety function of the US government, and we think it has to be on a US system. Number three, we are concerned about all the secondary things like cybersecurity and also how the broad international issues of how are all the operators. It's not just a question, can we do something? We know we can do something. There are a lot of talented people. The question is, how does that something working in a very complicated world to increase safety and not lessen it?
We've hit 0-0, but I've got to ask, you say US system, in your mind's eye, commercial, or are you thinking that a government system?
The infrastructure will ride on what we call a gov cloud. So it's not, we are not going to take classified information. And, you know, DoD does have classified information on its system. That's one of the great challenges of getting information from DoD to us, is that we don't want classified information. Okay. But some of the information we're going to hold will require special handling. And so we made the decision that having on what's called a gov cloud is preferable.
Last question. I could go on forever with you, but Pathfinders, will there be information on your website?
Of course, there's Sandy Magnus, who's amazing, a former astronaut. Now she came in to be the chief engineer, and I tricked her into being the temporary program manager. She's resented me ever since she came on board. But there's a long video that Sandy did on the Office of Space Commerce website. It's probably like 25 minutes, and she goes through every part of the program and what we're planning. There should be some information sessions coming up, hopefully in December, where we talk about that. But we try to do everything we can on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, X, and on LinkedIn and on our website. We try to keep the information fresh of what we're going to do. We're going to do some more. We did some workshops with operators globally, and we're going to be replicating that again when we get into the Pathfinders. So yes, we're going to try to push as much information as we can out.
All right, thank you. Could I have a round of applause, please?
Thank you.